You're now listening to the show about the shit in life that's just a bit too much, from the perspective of stand-up comics. With our hosts, Carmelo Bongiovi and Ken Krantz. This week's topic, 2025, Day 1. This is A Bit Too Much.
I'm 39, man. I'm not that old.
Yeah.
But I've got a lot wrong with me.
Yeah. I know when you tell me, like, when I tell people my age, they always think I'm so much older.
I think it's just because of the way I look. I don't think that has to do with they don't know my ailments.
Oh, okay.
Like when I meet people, that's a reaction.
Because I didn't think that, but I guess.
Did you think I was my age?
I didn't know your age. But now that I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see why people think you're.
Yeah, and that definitely even when I had my life more together and I didn't look like I slept outside. You know, when people definitely, like, even when I was younger, thought I was a few years older. But the older I get, the more of an age difference there is in the perception of what I look like to what I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when I was younger, when I was like 18, they thought I was like 21. Now I'm 39 and they think I'm 53. Like the gap of perception to reality is getting bigger. And I don't know what it is. I think I also physically like took a dip post kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think like having a kid as you get a little older, like as opposed to if we had my kid in my 20s or something. Like I think like, because like the beginning is so hard. Now she's great. She's 3. She's running around. She's like a whole human now. But before that point, that first year just beats the fuck out of you. Like when they're not sleeping, so you're not sleeping. And then like even just like playing with her now, like my fucking knees hurt. I threw my back out recently.
For an episode that wasn't going to be all about your ailments.
This is a little bit. But what you don't understand is my whole life is about my ailments. Like I can't even get around. It's like me pretending to not be Italian. It's like no one believes Carmelo Bongiovi's in Italian. I can't really get through life without being like, oh. Like you don't notice it as much because when we talk, I'm just sitting here.
You must be so much fun to be married to.
Yeah, my wife is like, you're just so fucking grumpy. I'm like, you don't understand what it feels like to be me. Okay? You don't really get it because there's pains, there's aches. It's funny because, maybe a therapist could help with some of this stuff too. But I'm like, there's part of me, and I don't know if this is the comic thing or like me just being like a grumpy New York Italian, but there's part of me that feels like I need the grumpiness.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this part that's like, oh, I should go figure some stuff out for my mental health and for my health, my physical health and all that stuff. And the physical health I do want to figure out. But the mental health, I kind of always am like, yeah, but kind of, it's quirky old me.
Yeah, but do you think like being cranky and kind of a dick, like, do you think that makes, I know you didn't say you were kind of a dick.
No, that was you. You added that part in. Not wrong. I get it.
But do you hold on to like, well, I think having a little bit of that edge makes me funnier? Because I've heard comics.
That's what I mean. What I mean.
Yeah, because I've heard comics who are like, they don't want to go into therapy because they're worried if they figure out what's making them so miserable, they won't be as funny.
Yeah. I do feel that way, but I also know that I'm incorrect in feeling that way.
Yeah.
I know
that's what I was going to tell you.
I know that. No, I know. It's like I have both of those parallel thoughts. I do think like my grumpiness is like part of my whole demeanor.
Right.
But a therapist isn't going to change me to my core to where I'm not going to be funny anymore. It'll be a healthier state of mind, which in turn will make me a better all around person. Should make me better at what I do.
Right.
I know. Logically, okay. I do
just so
get
long
it.
as you know. I can't make you drink, I can only lead you there.
Yeah, to quote Ken Krantz, it's no skin off your tits, right?
That's right. I was just saying if that was a thought in your head, know that that's not really a thing.
Yeah. No, I do get it.
Yeah.
But I also I half believe it. You know what I mean? It's like I do believe that mental health is important for everyone. Like, I feel like everyone could benefit from a therapist. I've never talked to a therapist a day in my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never had a therapist.
Oh my God, we should do.
And I'm fucked. Like, I'm not, I need one. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
yes.
You do. Listen, I come in here and try and do what I can, but I'm not trained, you know? I'm just spitting out a lot of shit my own therapist tells me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's working. I think as the episodes progress, I'm venting more.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's good.
Isn't that half the battle?
Yeah.
Venting?
Yeah.
But I
Getting it out.
don't necessarily get advice back from you.
Right.
You know? You like normally I say, like, when I start to vent about things, you just say something horrible.
Yeah.
Like, you're certainly not a therapist.
No. I thought that
I mean, you might be the opposite. You know, whatever the opposite of that actually might be what you are. Like,
I think,
you might be making me worse, to be quite fucking honest. But if half the battle is accepting, you know, is like accepting the truth, I think the show's helping with that.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Right?
Yeah.
But
I thought my role was kind of to, like, I thought I was supposed to kind of come in and just say asshole things. I thought that's why you like
it is.
Oh, okay.
As a comic. Yeah, but we're talking about therapists now.
Oh, yeah.
We're not talking about you as a comic and as a co-host.
Okay.
I'm saying that's why we work together.
Right. Okay.
It might be killing me. You get what I'm saying,
Okay.
right? Like,
Right.
these are two different things. I mean, like, comics in general are not necessarily good for, like, to be around comics all the time is not necessarily good for your mental health.
It's not. I remember. It's funny. I started comedy initially because I used to watch. Do you remember Colin Quinn's Tough Crowd?
Yeah, of
on
course.
Comedy Central.
Yeah.
That was the show that really made me pay a lot
It's
of
also
attention.
one of those for me as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Made me pay a lot of attention to stand up. I discovered a lot of comics that I loved there.
Yeah.
And what looked so much fun to me was just the having comedian friends.
Yeah.
Right.
Hanging out.
And I was like, oh man, this is how me and my friends
And it
talk
is
to
fun,
each
by
other.
the way.
Yeah.
That is actually true.
But I remember thinking, like, how do I become friends with comedians? I didn't have the thought yet, like, oh, maybe I should just go try it.
Oh, you just want to be around comics.
I was like, yeah, how do I just, like, worm my way in and become friends with comedians?
How do I create a collection of the world's worst people?
Yeah.
That's what you realize after,
and
right?
now that 15 years, I've been doing stand-up for 15 years, and a good chunk of my friends and social circles are all comedians. And now that I've done it, I'm like, oh, I wish I had some normal friends.
Yeah.
You know, like, how do I get some accountants?
You know what's funny
hang
though?
out with?
You know what's funny though is it's kind of like when you hang out with the normies, it's probably healthier for you. But then at the same time, sometimes when you're with them, you're like, I kind of would rather just be hanging out with comics. So you kind of go back and forth.
You know what it is?
They don't-
It's like, it's just everything they do is so much healthier. And it's like, oh, that's probably how I should be living my life. But then you sit down and you have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And it's like fucking watching paint dry.
It's just
You know?
boredom, right? It's boredom of like the mundane
Yeah.
conversations. Now, you can have normal friends that are also funny and cool to talk to, but those are harder to find.
Right.
I have a few of those.
Yeah.
Great.
No,
But they're harder to find. Like,
I have a handful of friends who are funnier than any comic I know.
Right.
That just have such, like, genuine rage in them.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny.
but again, look what you're looking for in a friend is rage. You know what I mean? It is a little fucked because, like, think of how we can fill our day, and think of how a normal person with a normal 9 to 5 fills their day.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say you work in marketing. You're thinking about, like, how's this thing going to perform when you're at work, right? How's this thing going to do? How's this going to perform? What's the strategy? You're thinking of these very businessy things. What are my meetings today? And then you go home and you think about your family and your bills and all that stuff. It's like, how much of the day do we just, like, fine tune a joke or write or do this,
Right.
or do things that, like, for
edit
most people would feel like absolute wasting time.
Yes.
Right? Like, thinking of an abstract concept for a joke, let's say, right? Like I spent my whole ride here debating a punchline for something because I'm writing something.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this better or is this better? You know? And I don't know. And I by the way, I still don't know the answer. And I won't know the answer until I probably do both of them and figure it out. But that's how I filled, and that's an hour and a half. I drive an hour and a half to get here.
Yeah, that's so crazy to me too.
Did I drive an hour and a half to get here?
Yes.
Well, most recently it didn't work out so well for me.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
So
yeah. So part of what I want to talk about is, so this is the first episode of 2025 for us, by the way. Mm-hmm. And also it's episode 30. This is the 30th episode.
They said it couldn't be done.
They said, yeah. I mean, like,
in fact, they said we don't even want this to be done.
Yeah, and the they is my wife and everyone I know and you and a shared universe podcast studio. They're like, why do you keep coming back? That's the they. Ming's like, just stop, okay? Just stop doing the show. It's hurting people. Yeah. So they said it's gonna be done because this is so difficult. They're like, people watch a show and they're like, how is it done? What's the magic that puts together this? And so for you, it's probably like your 20th-ish episode, right? Because I did like a handful of episodes before I found you, before I discovered the beauty that is Krantz.
Before me, you were like Daryl Hall, just going out there.
Fuck
alone.
you. Fuck you.
I could have made you John Oates. I was being nice.
Yeah, but like Daryl, who's Hall without Oates?
Well, I mean,
I think that's your point.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Who was I before you?
Yeah, but if I'd still rather be Daryl Hall. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. It was a half compliment, but it was also half an insult. Yeah. So, in 2024, one of the last recordings we did here of 2024, I get in my car, drop my daughter off at daycare. This is what I normally do before I come to the show. I live in Westchester, this is in Jersey. It's still a far drive. It's an hour and a half drive. I drop my daughter off, normal day, but it's the first time it rained in New York in I think 100 days.
Hasn't rained here in months, right?
Yeah.
100
days. It was the first day it rained in 100 days. And I think this is what led to the sort of like getting out that accident that I had, was the floor is like, it's like, this is a road where a lot of trucks, like 18-wheelers drive by and stuff. And there's a lot of, I think the floors were just slick. Like the oils kind of rise up when it first rains until it rains enough to kind of wash it away. That's typically how that works. So I think the floors were just slick. Earlier in the ride, I had a little like kind of stop short.
So when you say floors, you're referring to the road?
The streets, yes. Okay. Yeah. Like not in my house. We do wash our floors.
I was like, maybe that's why I got into an accident.
I only wash the floors in my house when it rains outside is my point. So I drop my daughter off. I'm down the road. I'm like, I'm going to go pick up a bagel. This is what it's always fucking food with me. It's going to be the death of me, literally. I'm like, I'm going to go pick up a bagel, this bagel place. I'm going to get it and then just head out, get right on the highway and head out to Jersey. And I make a right turn off this main road onto this little side road. And I make a turn. I'm not going that fast. I'm going like, I'm coming off a main road where, people aren't necessarily driving slow. I'm not going that slow, but I'm, I hit the brakes, like not hit them, but like I ease on the brakes the way you would on a turn. But I just keep going right. And I turn the wheel left and I'm just my car is just heading for a guardrail. Like I just slid.
Yeah.
And I keep going right. And then I see the guardrail and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm about to hit this thing. But I'm at a point, so the guardrail is coming out of the ground, like it's dug into the ground.
Right.
It's one of those, and
so
then
it's almost like a ramp.
So yeah, it's one of those like metal guardrails that have like the curve. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so and then it kind of comes up and levels off to a normal height of a guardrail. So I go over this thing at the point where it's in the ground, so my car isn't touching yet. And now I'm like stopping short. I'm trying to get around it. The fucking guardrail now lifts my car up because I drive over the guardrail. You know what I mean? I'm driving over it. Now as it comes out of the ground, it lifts my car on the driver's side off the ground and almost fucking flipped the car over.
That sounds really scary.
It was pretty scary. Yeah.
Like you were on two wheels?
I was on two, yeah.
Oh man.
When I got out of the car, I had to jump out like I was on two wheels.
Yeah.
Like it was on the passenger side was down on the floor and the driver's side was up.
How sad would that have been? Like if you had died and the last thing you were trying to do was fucking come here to talk to me. That would be.
Yeah, I was on my way to get a bagel to talk to a bagel. I was, you know, I was that would have been my final moments. But I've said this before here, and I say it all the time. I do think food will be the death of me in some way.
Yeah,
my death will be food related. It will either be like I'm a fat ass and I can't hold off, so I have to go get food and I die on the way to get the food, or I will choke on food, or my cholesterol will just kill me. Something food related will happen because it's probability at this point. Like I spent so much of my life consuming, that I think that eventually, like they will find me with like tomato sauce all over me, like, oh my God, someone bludgeoned him. He's bleeding everywhere. Like, it's marinara. It's
fucking your autopsy shouldn't have the word garlic knot in it.
Right, and how that happens? What about the garlic knot that killed me? We don't know yet, but it will be a food. Yeah,
I'm picturing it lodged in your throat.
Yeah, that's a very good possibility. You know how many times I've almost died choking on food?
I do know how many times I've almost died choking on like my own saliva. I do that once or twice a month. A lot of times when I'm driving, like I'm convinced that I'm gonna. I think that's how I'm going out. Like I'm gonna just choke on nothing. Does that ever happen?
Oh yeah, certainly.
Okay.
But no, it happens. But I never think that was almost it.
Oh, every time.
Yeah, but I don't think you die from that. I'm
like Sanford and Son every time.
Yeah, but I don't think you die like when water goes down the wrong pipe. Like wrong pipe is like also such a like a term that's not really the real thing. But like when that happens, that like you're not gonna die. Unless you were drowning it. Like, unless that was like a lot of what, you're not going to die from that.
All right. Well, it feels
you think you could possibly one day just die from your own spit?
I'm convinced. Yeah.
That's incredibly stupid. That is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Because you can't die from that.
Okay. All right.
Like you choke, you cough for a little bit. But like a food, like a whole garlic knot, I was like, oh, this was small enough for me to chew the whole thing. You know what happens to me sometimes? I'm just like, I'm eating, and then maybe I try to say something, like my daughter does something. I'm like, no. So I'm like now talking with my mouth full when I wasn't expecting to. So she just like touches something she's not supposed to. I'm like, no. And then I just start choking on it. I've almost gone down for food many times. Long stretchy cheese.
You fucking
and then you pull it out like a fucking magician, like pulling a ribbon out of my mouth. I've done that a bunch of times.
I just picture you pulling like polio string cheese out of your mouth.
Yeah, but it's like
different colors, like the handkerchiefs.
A fucking whole rabbit comes out of my throat.
This is just because now we're talking about magicians. But
we were. I mean, barely. Okay. But
I heard the funniest fucking story. I don't know if I've told you. I know a comic, and he told me this story where he was opening for a magician once. And they're in the club, and the club has windows like our studio that face out to the street. For some reason, the magician thought that they were one way in windows. So he thought you can see out, but the people couldn't see in. Not sure why he thought that, but that was the impression that he was like a police
interrogation.
Like, I don't know.
Why do you?
I don't know.
What do you think? Does he think everything in his life is trickery? Like every mirror is a false mirror.
I don't know.
Like everything's a fucking circus.
I don't know.
He sees a dog coming down the street and he's like, oh, I bet they're gonna jump in a fucking top hat and you're not gonna see him anymore.
Maybe it looked like mirrored from the outside. I don't know. I don't know. But for some reason, this dude didn't think you could see into the windows.
Okay.
And he tells me this lady walks up to the window of the comedy club and she's like putting her fucking lipstick on or whatever. Yeah. I don't know why I went to the eye for lipstick.
Yeah, weird.
But
it's okay.
The magician sees her and starts, wait, I'll get up for this. And he starts like doing this real obscene.
Is he like even in frame? No. What
Oh.
You know there's not a camera person there that's gonna follow you. Like
No,
track
I
you,
didn't
right?
know that. So I didn't even know we filmed this. No, don't worry about it. Don't worry.
This is a podcast? No. Now you've done it. Go ahead. Go ahead, you got it.
All right, so
Shout out to fucking Kahuna, right? Just doing some fucking live tracking work here.
the magician sees this lady putting her makeup on in the mirror.
Yeah.
And starts doing all this obscene shit, like, you know, like just because he thinks
Because
that
you think no one can see it.
he thinks no one can see it.
Yeah.
But she immediately is like, what the fuck? Like, she clearly saw it, right?
Right.
So she calls to somebody that you can't see because he's just off, I guess, off frame or whatever. Like, you know, he's not in front of the window. And all of a sudden, this big, like, fucking hulking linebacker dude comes walking over. Must have been her boyfriend. And she's pointing to the magician, right? So he fucking beelines right into the club, sees the magician. The magician turns to the comics like, what should I do?
Yeah.
He was like, I guess make yourself disappear. Like, I don't know. But this dude comes in and just starts throwing punches right away.
Really?
Yeah. And he said every time he hit the dude, a piece of his act would fly out.
Ribbon and shit.
It's like
A dove flies out of his pocket.
confetti,
Oh,
you know,
that's
fucking And he said the
amazing.
whole thing was over in a minute or two. And when it was done, the magician's lying on the ground, like moaning. And there's just like blood and bits of his act all over the floor.
Fucking sweet justice is what that is.
I'm trying to remember
I have a
who
few
told me
thoughts.
that story.
I have a few thoughts here. One is that's what every magician deserves.
Right?
One. Two, there's nothing funnier than the idea of like this guy, you know, when he was home and he's getting ready to go do his act, he's putting the cards in the pocket and he's getting all the tricks ready. And there's so much paraphernalia to have it beaten off of you. It's fucking hilarious.
Yes.
And my last thought is, did you really have to get up for that? Did you do that? You could have done that sitting down. But anyway, that's fucking great though.
Yeah.
You know, like there's been times where I've been threatened on stage, you know, from like fucking with somebody in the crowd, directly related to my comedy. But I feel like magicians aren't usually offensive. So it's not many moments where that happens to a magician. Like people aren't going to be like, that trick, I know the fucking real trick. Like I know how you did that. I'm going to fuck you up. Magicians don't get threatened often.
No, I wouldn't think so.
You know? Unless you're like Chris Angel. I feel like they piss people off. Like those kind of magicians piss people off, you know?
I remember, have you ever seen...
Magicians suck.
Have you ever seen a magician bomb?
Yeah, every time I've seen a magician, they're not like unless they're performing for a fucking 3-year-olds.
Right.
Like I recently saw what was at a get together and they hired a magician for the kids and the kids were blown away by, you know, the trickery is like great for kids. After I'll say 11 years old, and if the kid's savvy enough, 8. All right, fuck a magician. I mean, sir, what are we doing? Why are we still doing this? This is an old timey performance, right? This is something that was impressive to people, you know, in the late 1800s and the early, like as far as like when it probably stopped becoming cool. I don't know. I would say anything past like the 50s. Can we just stop with the magicians? Unless you're David Blaine and you're going to suspend yourself over fucking Times Square in a tank, and I'm like, is he going to live in that?
I feel like we should have maybe 4 or 5 magicians tops in the world.
Yeah.
That's like, that's all that's needed.
Like if you're not the Houdini-esque type of magician, like watch me escape from this thing where it's actually like, how is he going to do that? If you're doing fucking card tricks and making a fucking bird come out of your pocket, stop. Just stop it. You ever meet a magician? You ever fucking talk to a magician? I knew someone who was dating a magician. And this is, you know, maybe this is why I'm so angry about magicians. I sat in a fucking bar with these people, and the girl is a friend of my, the woman's a friend of my wife's. We love her, and she's great. But she was dating this magician, and he had like frosted tips, and like it was pretty recent. You know, this is like maybe 5-6 years ago. It's like that style was way out, but it just felt very like modern magician. Like it felt like very 2002 magician. You know, And he's sitting there and keeps on making references to what we do.
Yeah.
Him and I.
Yeah.
You know, we have this common bond because we're performers. I'm like, no, I'm a performer. You're doing tricks that would blow a 5-year-old's mind.
I mean, listen,
for adults.
Some of them,
don't defend midgets.
Look, some of the tricks are you're like, oh shit, how did they do that?
Sure.
But you're always like, well, I know it's a trick.
Yeah, sure. Of course. I'm not saying I know every trick. I'm not saying I've figured out because I don't pay enough attention to magic,
right?
Because it's fucking stupid.
I remember working with a magician once, and I got off stage. I was featuring. I get off stage, and he tells me, and then the host is back up there, you know, so I got a few minutes before he goes on. And I get off stage, and he looks at me and he says, "You're strange." He goes, He's like, I was listening.
You're strange.
Yeah, he goes, I was listening to your jokes, and you're kind of an odd dude.
Yeah, he's not wrong, but like at the same time, he's a guy who chose magic for a profession.
I said to him, you're literally stuffing a pigeon into your sequined vest. Like, as he's telling me this,
like,
he's telling me I'm weird. And then the best
shut
part
the fuck
is,
up, you're weird.
He comes out, and the thing is, it's like when we bomb, we can pivot, you know, like you can start a joke and say, oh, this isn't working out.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stop doing this joke instantly.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try.
You don't have to finish it.
I'm going to try a different joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, you're never even going to hear the punchline because I just gave up on it.
You saw the demeanor in the crowd.
But a magician can't do that.
Yeah,
so it's like, it's a lot of it's choreographed to music. So it's like, you got to watch this dude bomb for the entirety of Eye of the Tiger.
Right.
He can't do anything. He just has to keep smiling and acting like people are into it.
You know what's interesting about that? So I often, because I've had a lot of musician friends, as do you.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes we do the comparison of comedy to music.
Yep.
And what I always said was like, because I think a lot of comedians wish they were the musicians.
Musicians are frustrated comics. Comics are frustrated musicians.
Yeah, right. And so I'm like, oh, I wish I could be a fucking rock star, go on stage and do that. And
I
then
wouldn't do that.
And part of the desire also is like, you know, if you're bombing in music, it's not really bombing. Like you're still feeling in terms of what we know as bombing, because even if everyone in the crowd hates your music, you're still filling the air with sound.
Yeah.
So there's never a deafening silence with music. You right?
Right.
Like people, you wouldn't, like if people are just like kind of like talking to each other and stuff, music is louder than talking with a decent sound system. So like you can always, like it never feels that bad, I think.
Right.
And now granted, a musician could probably see the demeanor in the crowd, not love what they're seeing. But again, there's not a silence in the room. Now a magician, on the other hand, is locked into their act as much as a musician is. But they can also experience a silence that a comedian guy. I never thought of it like that. A magician bombing might be the worst kind of bombing.
Yeah.
Right? It might be worse than us. And I thought we had the hardest in terms of bombing. A magician bombing might be the worst kind of bombing experience there could be.
Because once you start a trick, you have to see it through to the end.
Right, like a musician.
No pivot.
But they could also get the silence.
Yeah.
And they should get the silence. They should.
I'm
sorry, when adults are like, ooh, like when the trick happens, you're like, just stop. It was in a sleeve or something else. It was something like that.
Very early in my career, I did a show with it was like a black room. Mm-hmm. You know, so all the comics were black, the room is black, and they would get like a couple white dudes.
Yeah.
And when you're starting out, you can get a lot of time on these shows.
Yeah.
You know, so it
Why,
really
all the comics are late.
No, that's not what I was going to say. I was going to say that they're generous, you know,
and you know what's funny about those shows? I feel that like they could be the biggest laughs or the biggest bombs.
Yes. Yep.
Right? Like and I've had both experiences where you're like, no one laughs fucking harder than a black crowd out for a good night.
Yep.
Right? Like the hardest laughers, the best laughers. But if you're bombing, it's also like they look at you like, get off now. We just don't like this.
When they loved you, you feel it, and when they hate you, you feel it even more. But so I'm on this show, and there's a female comic. Me and her are the only white people in the room, and her act was she was a magician, but she was also like a flight attendant for real. Like that was her day job.
Yeah.
And so her act was, I'm like, she was
About
the magical stewardess or whatever. And she had on her flight attendant gear.
Yeah.
And she had the little push cart, but in the push cart, like instead of drinks and food and shit, it was her magic tricks.
Gotcha. Okay.
And this crowd was not ready for this. And
yeah, who would be ready for that?
And I remember
so unique.
The stage, like the stage wasn't much bigger than this couch, you know? So she's up there with the push cart, but there's not a lot of room. And I remember she's doing her act, she's bombing, nobody cares about the tricks. And then she's talking to the lady in front of her. And the lady was sitting there with her arms folded. And then she was like, "Is this your card?" You know? And then the lady doesn't even like pull her card out to check. And she just said, "Honey, I don't give a fuck if it is or not."
Leave me alone.
The whole place erupted. And
Yeah.
then she had to like do a sad little like K-turn, like Dr. Evil with her little push cart on the tiny little stage.
That's sad.
And there wasn't a green room. So she just had to walk off early because the laughter was so great at this lady's joke. And there wasn't a green room. She just had to like go stand back in the corner.
Yeah. You know, it's sad. That's a sad moment for that person.
Yeah.
But sorry if this is a dick thing to say, but you put together an act where you were a stewardess magician.
Right.
Right? Like you put that together. You spent a lot. And while that's sad that didn't work out, the fuck did you think was going to happen as the stewardess magician? Did you think you were going to bring down the house?
Listen, I'm not saying that act couldn't work. I'm just saying
It shouldn't.
that like Mangoes in Rahway, New Jersey maybe wasn't the venue for you.
Sure. And maybe shouldn't be the venue for anyone. You know, but I just, you know, I think, you know, I think like magicians, it's like when I see them at a party with kids, I'm like, great. Anything after that, man, like, I don't know. I read Steve Martin's book a long time ago.
Yeah,
and it's
that
like,
was good.
And a very good book. And he talks about like how he, cause this is how old Steve Martin is that he, like when he was coming up, he was being trained by like old vaudevillian people like that. The vaudeville thing was over, but he still knew these guys.
Right, but they were still alive.
They were still alive and still doing like circus acts, or their acts at like circuses, I should say. And so he started his comedy doing magic, but it was comedy infused. And then eventually he just dropped the magic. And I think you could tell, like you can kind of see it as it becomes bigger, he's very theatrical about his comedy. And you go like, oh, that's how long ago magic was like that's the last time magic was probably still good. So and it still wasn't, like he had to drop the magic eventually. He talks about like how the magic part of it was taking so much time to craft, but like it wasn't the best part of his show, and he realized like the comedy was the better part of the show. So eventually he just went to comedy. You know?
So are you saying you think this lady was just like, maybe I should just be a flight attendant?
Yes. Or no, I think the world said you should just be a flight attendant. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it's not an act that, I mean, when the fuck is like when you think of a night out for yourself, you think, I want, like, let's say you want like a performance night, like go buy tickets to something. You're probably thinking concert first and foremost. Yeah. Right. That's what I think. But that's just because we're jaded. We don't go see comedy shows. You know what I mean? But before I was a comic, I would love to go see a comedy show. That's something I would buy tickets to. Do
you watch any comedy? Like, does comedy play any role in your life outside of when you're working?
No. Well, I mean, maybe if it's someone like, I'm always interested in like a Chappelle special. I'll watch a Chappelle special. Like someone who I like. I watched Anthony Jeselnik's special. Mm-hmm. because I just, I like to watch people who are either like huge who I like think are great, or like people that like, I think Justin Nick's a great like joke writer. I like to just see the craft.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I'll maybe watch like a special a year.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like
where I'm at.
I'll watch like one. I watched one recently as research for the show.
Oh, Adrian Appalucci's.
Which, by the way, is fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
Tremendous fucking special. But you know, like I'm happy I watched it because she may or may not be on the show one day.
No, we're getting her.
Right. So I'd love to have her on and you know, and a friend of yours, right? And so I was like, yeah, I'll watch that. And I'm happy I did. Really fucking phenomenal.
She's
fucking
like
special.
a master at writing dark jokes.
Yeah. I mean, really great. And maybe that's also like what I like. Justin Nick's also obviously super dark, very different style than her. But you know, like that's the kind of show I will. But like, no, I mean, I don't. It's not like I seek out comedy. I'm like very rarely will I want to watch, or like, you know what kills me is like if are you ever at a place or with people that want to watch like a comic that you like definitely don't want, like ever experience that? Somebody either like you're at someone's house, they want to watch a special, they want to like, oh, let's put this, or somebody suggests going to see, how about this? Someone says to you, oh, this comic's in town, let's go see them. And they want to like you to join and go and see. I'm like, no. There was recently a group of friends of mine, and these are people I like a lot. They wanted to go see, it was like a kind of a TikTok comic. You know, like not a comic, just like someone who got big that does skits. And they were like, let's go see him. And I'm like, I couldn't think of a worse way to spend a Saturday evening than watching a non-comic in a theater. By the way, sells out the fucking theater, which is infuriating.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
I like we're sitting here like shitting on magicians as if anybody cares about well-crafted jokes anymore.
Yeah, but
nobody cares. Everyone let's go be a part of some crowd work and insert ourselves.
Yeah, but there's true comedy fans who do care. Whereas are there true magic fans who are like, oh,
yeah, for sure, yeah.
There's true that are above 5 true magic fans.
I don't know. I mean, I guess
Orlando Magic has more fans. No, there's no real adult magic fans. Come on.
Do you see how upset you're getting at magicians?
I really don't know why.
I'm telling you, like, you need therapy. Like, you shouldn't. This shouldn't be like. I think it's funny to goof on magicians, but you seem to have like a real.
You know, I think it was that one dude. I think it was that dude who started going, because I never thought of it as a thing, as a parallel thing to what we do.
Oh,
ever.
Yeah.
I think that dude really set me the wrong way, and maybe now I'm just thinking all magicians think that, and I'm mad at all of them.
Yeah,
it's not the fucking same dude. I mean, I'll give you this: as a magician, there's a lot of pre-work. Probably do more work setting up your act than I do setting up mine. Right? Like, there's a lot of physical work.
I mean, how much work do you put into like
writing jokes? Have you seen my act? Not much.
Like, this is the amount of preparation I do before a set. Like, I'll be sitting in the green room or at the bar 10 minutes before I go on, scrolling through Facebook, going, "Oh, I like that when I posted
but you're
that
also
joke.
a pothead. You're also like,
let me try. Let me go up there and see if I can do something with that."
Yeah, right.
That's
right. Yeah, but that's not the truth for every comic. A lot of comics do a lot of writing and a lot of preparation, and don't just like walk in like they didn't know that they were going to be in that room.
I like when you see the comics there, like with their notebooks, talking about like, "Oh, what am I going to do tonight? What am I going to do tonight?" And you're like, I bet you do the same 10 minutes that I've seen you do 16,000 times.
Maybe you'll use one of those jokes in that notebook, right? Like,
no, but it's like, I can't believe you even have a notebook, because I've never seen you do anything but these 4 jokes.
Yeah, that's true. You know, even my writing has gotten so lazy. I used to write whole jokes, like from the first thing I would say to the last thing I would say, like in sentence form.
Yep.
I write like vague ideas down now.
Yeah.
Like, because I just don't want to forget the beats of the joke, but I'm like, you know, it's like words. It's like a bullet. I do like a bullet list sometimes of it for a joke, and I'm like, just hit these points.
Yeah,
I'll figure it out when I'm up there.
Yeah, I think that's
part of that's comfort, but part of that is a little laziness.
I mean, I remember when I started out the same way. Everything was written out to every word, and then I would memorize it.
You write it in a notebook still?
No,
I do it on my phone.
I don't. if I'm really worried I might forget, I'll go to my notes and jot something down, and then never
Like notes
ever,
in your phone?
Yeah, like in my phone,
Yeah.
like the app. And then never, ever, ever remember to go look at it until the next time where I'm like, oh, I shouldn't forget this. And then I'll be like, oh, look at these other things I already forgot about.
It helps if you want to bring back an old joke and you're like, oh, I kind of want to do that tonight, but I don't remember the joke that well.
You know
it helps
what?
with that.
You know what I'll do? I'll just launch into a joke. Like I'll
And see if you can figure it out.
on stage, because what ends up happening is you don't do it the same, because I'll be like, you know what? Things are going well. Let me try something old.
Right.
And see, because I like the challenge of like, let me see if I remember this. I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that
yeah,
sort
yeah,
of without a net
Yeah.
feeling, you know, like this could go horribly wrong.
And also, you might come up with something completely. If you don't remember, you might just come up with something
And then
different because you
that's-
have to, because you put yourself in the hole.
That's usually what ends up
And if that doesn't
happening.
work out, you can be like, "Is this your card?"
That's usually what ends up happening is you just stumble on a new way of doing it, and it breathes new life into it, and it makes it fresh and exciting again.
That's a great outlook for 2025. Right, starting the new year fresh. Take some risks. Started this show last year, and you weren't the co-host at the beginning. I actually didn't know you until I started the show.
Right.
And I was kind of like, part of me was like, what is this show going to be? And sometimes I thought like, because we don't always have a guest. Like we don't have a guest in here right now. And I thought like, what if no one comes in and it's just me? Do you know what this show could have been? Like I might have just been looking at the fucking camera.
Yeah.
And then I would have done that once and I would have hated it so much I would have quit the show.
The people that can do a solo podcast,
Yeah.
it's like, first off, good for them.
Good for them.
Because
Sure.
But I don't know how.
Bill Burr does that.
Yeah.
He'll just fucking go. But he's like a ranter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he will rant. I don't have it in me.
No.
I mean, I'll rant about magicians, but like, there's not many things that piss me off that much.
Yeah.
Those pieces of shit, those fucking vile assholes, but like, like if you could just like go like look at the camera like this and be like, you know what really pisses me off? Or like, you know what I was thinking?
And then talk for 40 minutes straight.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I'd have a 7-minute podcast if I was doing this alone.
Yeah.
And then I was gonna get other comics in, of course, and that's and I did a good there was like a first 10 to 15 that I did before I found the wonderful world of Krantz, and then you came on the show and we were like, we've talked about this before, but you came on as a guest.
Yeah.
And then we talked on the phone. I was like, hey man, you can come in whenever you want. And you were like, yeah, I kind of thought it was pretty good. And I was like, you want to just be the co-host? And you're like, yep. I was like, all right, see you later, co-host. I knew you for 5 minutes.
Yeah. And you know what I love? what I love about you is that. Well, I'm not saying I love you. I'm saying this is what I love.
No,
that's what I love about you.
So this is where I need therapy. I'm just seeking validation and love at all times.
Is you don't bother me too much with it. Like it's you know
I'm
what I
not
mean?
going
It's,
to.
it's like
yeah.
not a lot of conversations. It's just hey, does this date work? And
I'm not gonna lie, when I do have to reach out to you, because I kind of I'm pretty good at reading people, and it's now you've said that out loud, it definitely confirms what I've already thought, which is like he doesn't really want to do. You said one time I said to you, hey, do you want me to send you these clips with the captions on them or not? And you said to me, I don't know what makes you think I want to do more work.
You've been around me a little bit. Do I give off the vibe that I'm looking for extra work?
No, you give off the vibe that if I gave you work, you'd forget to do it. So
do you know what's so funny? I don't know what made my wife think of this, but she was asking me. She was like, the other day, she said, if you could be any police detective, like any TV police detective,
police, like a TV
detective, like any TV detective, who would you be? And I don't know what she thought my answer was going to be, and it took me literally less than a second to come up with it.
Yeah, what'd you say?
I was like, Inspector Gadget. Because that dude does no work. That dude just bumbles. He's got his daughter, Penny.
Yeah.
She figures out everything. She's doing all the work.
Yeah.
This dude just calls himself a detective and then just kind of bumbles around and coasts through the entire episode.
Because he relies on his gadgets. He's like, I'll figure this shit out. I got a fucking stretchy arm. He's kind of a magician, to be honest. He's like, look what's in my coat. And he fucking pulls it out.
But I was like, I feel like
Gadget's great.
I feel like that guy does the least amount of work. and he's doing okay, you know?
Yeah, that cartoon is definitely doing okay. You should definitely have the same work ethic as an 80s cartoon. As a detective that has gadgets attached to him.
She looked at me and was like, that is the most on-brand thing you have ever said.
It's a very Kranzy answer. It is. It is. Like when you just said to me, the thing you like most about me is that I don't bother you.
Right?
I mean, one could read into that statement and think that's a little bit of an insult. Like the less you talk to him, the more. What he likes the most about you is that you don't reach out that much.
Right. Yeah. It's like. So we were supposed to.
I do agree with you, though.
When.
Like no one wants to belabor this.
The other day when you had your accident and my wife was home from work and I was getting ready to come here and she was like, oh, I'm bummed that I'm going to be home and you're leaving. Mm-hmm. And then you called. Yeah. And as soon as I saw you calling, I was like, I don't think I'm going anywhere.
Yeah. We don't normally.
Right. Yeah. I was like, the only reason he's only calling to cancel. Like there couldn't possibly be anything else he would be expecting from me.
Yeah. You know, so that reminds me, like, you know, I really do love stand up. I love it so much. I love doing it. I love that it's been a part of my life for all these years. Is there anything better than a show being canceled? Like, did you ever have a show canceled last second? It feels great.
Let me tell you, I had a show in Florida.
Wish they canceled the whole fucking state.
Supper club.
Yeah.
And one-man show. You got to do an hour. The pay was pretty decent. Mm-hmm. It was worth like flying down to Florida. And my parents have a place in Delray Beach. Beautiful place. Mm-hmm. And the whole time I'm there, I'm sitting on the balcony all day because it overlooks a marina and I'm just looking at the ocean and boats. Yeah. And
I already know where you're going with this.
I'm smoking weed. I'm drinking. And all of a sudden, I get a phone call. And my stepdad's saying like, hey, what time do you have to leave? And I'm like, oh. You know, like, I have to leave. Then they called about 2 hours before showtime. And they were like, we are so sorry. Like something came up with the hotel. We have to cancel the show.
Oh, man.
But we're going to pay you in full.
Which is what you should do in that situation.
And we are so, but they were so apologetic.
You're going to pay me and I get to sit here?
Yeah, Mike, you're paying me decent money to not leave this balcony.
Yeah. Now, had you gone all the way to Florida and you were in some shitty motel and they did that to you and weren't like that situation could have gone in a way that could have pissed you off. But that's actually the perfect. They just they paid for you to have a nice vacation.
I had to like temper my excitement. You know, I was like,
dude, sometimes it doesn't even have to be that glamorous. There was a show in a fucking snowstorm once, and I kept on reaching out to the book. I'm like, "Are you going to cancel today?" And they kept on saying no. I got in the fucking car. I'm on the way. I'm not far from home though. I'm driving. They called. They finally canceled. Without skipping a beat, I made a U-turn. I picked up dessert. I went right back home. I walked in. I didn't even tell my wife. I just like walked right in. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "This is our night, baby." And we had the best. We binged a fucking TV show. Fucking had dessert, and it was amazing. Like, it was great. I was so excited that I had like, I'm pretty sure I had like cookies and milk like a child because I was so happy. I was so goddamn happy. I was so excited. I'm like, I just want to be a kid again. I'm so happy. There's nothing better, I think, for a comic than like our responsibilities getting canceled.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And by the way, we do it because we do love doing it. But we don't love it more than not doing anything. Right? you know, that's our greatest passion in life is just fucking sitting there.
I would have been happy to do the show.
Yeah. But remember, we're comics because we don't want to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
So when we have to do even less work, fucking that's the tits.
they followed up with like an apology email. And I was like, you literally delivered the best news of my day.
Right. So Ken, first show, 2025, episode 30, landmark. Some would call it, some are calling it a landmark episode.
Everyone's talking.
Yeah, the same people who didn't want us to do the show in the first place. They're all talking. 2025. What are you looking forward to? What are you dreading?
It's weird because I feel like I'm looking forward to, but I am also simultaneously dreading just like the state of the world. Like it's like the first, I wasn't a Trump dude. But just because I grew up in the tri-state area, I just feel like nobody in the tri-state area was ever a Trump dude because we were the ones that saw him up close.
Except for Italians for some reason.
Because
why is that a thing?
I think he's like,
what is it about Trump that Italians see themselves in? Like in him. It's a thing. Like in New York.
I think I don't know. I think that he's like.
He's loud.
He's what a blue collar dude.
Yeah.
Would be like, oh, that's how I would be if I was a billionaire.
Yeah, that's what I would say to him. Yeah. Because he's loud. He's like Italians. He's loud. He's abrasive. When he runs for president, he beats women.
I mean, it's
there's a lot of ways he's like Italians.
His first term that caused me a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
Just a lot of waking up. First off, I'll tell you what really cemented my hatred for this dude. Mm-hmm. It was forcing me to pay attention to politics because up until Trump, I had never paid attention to politics.
I do miss not caring.
I would, if I watched the news, it was only to so I could know what was going on in the world in case I wanted to talk about it on stage. Yeah, but it was like I'd watch for material.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't watch like, oh, I really am very passionate about, whatever.
Yeah, I feel like if something huge happened, I'd be like, oh, let's see what they're saying.
But this dude forced you out of anxiety to like read the news and be glued to it. And
hate him or love him, he forced you to.
I would wake up every morning. The first thing you would do is check Twitter. Be like, oh, what did this asshole say overnight? Like, and sometimes it was hilarious, like
a lot of times if you could disconnect yourself from the repercussions it actually has in the real world, comedically.
He was, I will say this, not that I couldn't tell you the last time I went on Twitter, but from 2016 to 2020, that dude was as entertaining on Twitter as, any professional entertainer.
One time he just tweeted a half word, like a messed up word, like kafifi.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I still, by the way, call my coffee kafifi because of that moment. And you're like, what kind of like middle of the night McDonald's and Coca-Cola induced tweet was that?
So I spent the first 4 years with a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
And then Joe Biden. And then I remember like, oh, I still have to pay attention. I remember watching Joe Biden do his first State of the Union and I turned it off in 20 seconds because I was like, this is the most boring shit. This is what politics it should be so boring.
He hasn't said anything funny.
That I can't even watch it.
Listen, eventually he did develop a really good character though. Biden, where he was like shaking hands with the air. He did develop a good comedic character. Like a Mr. Magoo type of thing.
Yeah, like an Inspector Gadget type. It's so funny you said that's my wife calls me Mr. Magoo. She's
calls
like,
you Mr. Magoo?
She's like, you can't just be out there Mr. Magooing your way through life.
That's a great fucking nickname for you.
But
we should call this show Guinea and Magoo.
So now Trump's back and it's like you're just so beaten down by how,
like, whatever it is.
It's like, I don't even care now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I avoid the news altogether. I couldn't tell you the last time I watched it. If I go to the New York Post, I just skip straight to the sports.
Right.
I'm not trying to find any. And every now and then you'll see a headline like, Trump appoints Count Chocula as, ambassador to nutrition.
Right.
And you're like, well, it's not who I would have gone with, but
Macho Man is the head of education.
They did that. Did they get like fucking a wrestler is going to head up?
Linda McMahon.
Yeah.
Linda McMahon. Well, she was in his first administration, but I think it was like a small business thing.
Right.
Which made, that kind of was like, okay, she's a business person, right? But, yeah, you know what I kind of my mentality about it is right now. It's like my senior year of college. It's like I never liked school. I didn't like college. I didn't like any of it. But in my last year, I'm like I could ride this out. This will be the last of it,
right?
So I could ride this out. Now, granted,
who knows? It's not good. No, because it's just gonna.
There's repercussions, but
do you remember like? I know when we were kids, we would have. You'd hear your parents talk like, "Oh, there's no one's ever going to be worse than Ronald Reagan."
Yeah.
And then Bush came along. The second Bush came along.
Yeah.
And then people were so up in arms about Bush, and they were like, "It will never be this bad again."
Yeah.
Then Trump comes along and makes Bush look like somebody you want to hang out with.
Yeah.
And people are, well, it's never going to be this bad, but it's like, oh, it will.
Yeah, the moral of the story is
it just keeps getting worse.
With politicians, stop believing it can get worse.
Yeah, we haven't bottomed out. I'm sure we're not even close.
Does anyone pay attention to the last election, the shit show, the last election on both sides?
Yeah.
It could get worse.
Yeah.
There's more of them out there.
We're going to have like a juggalo in
Yeah, we don't even know these people yet.
Right.
There's horrors just waiting for us. It's not going to get better after this.
No, it doesn't feel
much like this show. All right, so this is a bit too much podcast. Find us on the socials. Hey, look, it's episode 30, right?
It's episode 30.
I just keep saying that like it means something.
It's a huge milestone.
It's episode 30. We'll see if we do any more after this. As long as I don't what I learned today, as long as I don't bother Krantz.
Welcome to our 30th and final.
Yeah. I've learned a few things today. I think if I had to recap this whole thing is don't text Krantz ever.
No, you can text, but just don't. It just doesn't have to be a lot, you know?
Yeah,
but it's not a lot. It's not a lot. It's
yeah.
not. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
There's no complaint. That's what I'm saying. I think that's why this works.
Don't text Krantz and fuck magicians is what I took out of this episode.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.